A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
The shepherds went in haste to Bethlehem and found Mary and Joseph and the infant lying in the manger. When they saw this, they made known the message they had been told them about the child. All who heard it were amazed by what had been told them by the shepherds. And Mary kept all these things, pondering them in her heart. Then the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen, just as it had been told to them. When 8 days were completed for his circumcision, he was named Jesus, the name given him by the angel before he was conceived in the womb. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Today is the feast of the Solemnity of Mary, the Mother of God. Most of the imagery that we have about Mary is not at all rooted in the scriptures. It comes from piety throughout the centuries. Let me just take a few minutes and examine what we know about Mary from the scriptures. And what we do know comes almost entirely from Luke. It is Luke's gospel that gives us 98% of what we know about Mary. It is only Luke who tells us the story of the angel appearing to her, that she was going to be the mother of the Son of God. Only Luke tells us about her going to visit Elizabeth, the mother-to-be of John the Baptist. Only Luke tells us the story of Mary and Joseph going to Bethlehem for the census, a journey of 70 miles that Mary took at 9 months pregnant. And again, only Luke tells us the story of the stable, the manger, the swaddling clothes, the shepherds, the animals, all of those things. And then after that infancy story, we only encounter Mary 2 more times in the Gospels. One is when they take the child Jesus to the temple and they lose him. And after they have searched frantically for him, Mary says to him, "Son, why have you done this to us?" And Jesus rather curtly answers her, "I must be about my Father's business." And then the only other time Mary speaks in all of the Gospels is at the first miracle that Jesus performs, the wedding feast at Cana, when she says to Jesus, "They have no wine." And once again, he responds to her rather curtly, and he says, "Woman, of what concern is this to me?" And then she doesn't say anything to Jesus. She merely turns to the wine stewards and says, "Do as he tells you." And then we hear her speak again. We're told she traveled with Jesus, with Mary Magdalene and the others, that she was present at the crucifixion, and that she was in the upper room on Pentecost. But that is about all we know about her. Scripture scholars speculate that she was a 13-year-old peasant girl, that Nazareth had about 130 to 150 people living in it. When after the crucifixion and resurrection, Scripture scholars are pretty much of one mind that the apostles feared for her life. And so John, the beloved disciple, to whom Jesus had entrusted his mother from the cross, is said to have taken Mary to Ephesus. Ephesus is in present-day Turkey. And if you go there, high up in the mountains is a little place called Mary's House. It's a very small, rather crude stone building, maybe, I'm going to guess, maybe about 12 by 15 feet. There's a very low door at the front, and on the side is a little window not much bigger than that. And it is believed that that is where Mary lived and eventually died. In the 4th century, a small chapel was built adjacent to the house. It's very small, maybe seats about, I would guess, 30 to 35 people. I've had the privilege of celebrating Mass there. When I first went to Mary's house back in the 1970s, you had to go by dirt road to get up there, and it was incredibly peaceful. You knew you were in a holy place. You could hear the leaves rustling, the birds chirping, and there was just a quiet. There was something about the place. Unfortunately, today they've built a superhighway, huge parking lots for the buses, and it's lined with shops and become very commercialized, and it's lost its charm. Mary's greatness was her being the mother of the Son of God, but her real greatness was her willingness to say yes to what God asked of her. Can you imagine a 13-year-old peasant girl, illiterate, and suddenly an angel tells her all of these things? And what does Mary do? She says yes. And that is why you and I need to imitate her. Amen.